All right, so this is for Trout in the classroom. I just set it up. Many thanks to Trout in the classroom for providing the equipment and the rainbow trout eggs for us to be able to do this in our school. But let's check out this setup. I did not have time to videotape it while I was actually setting it up because I was setting it up just trying to do odds and ends as much as possible. Anyway, the main things that I forgot, you need to have this insulation all around the tank. That includes underneath it. So make sure that all of your insulation is surrounding the tank before you actually put gravel and water and filter plates and stuff, because I had to completely break it apart so that I could fit this lovely piece of insulation in the bottom. So the reason why you want so much insulation around the tank, there are two side panels that I have taken off here for the sake of this video, is so that this tank remains as cold as possible. So in my messy room, you can see that I have the blinds drawn. I'm going to completely black out this room. We get a lot of really warm morning sunlight, and I tried initially putting the tank back here as far away from the sun as possible, but the height of the chiller prevented me from accessing these shelves. So as you can see, the chiller extends 4 or 5 inches above the top of the tank, so I had to move it over here. And this is a better spot too, because when students go from their regular seats back here, we can observe from both sides of the tank actually. You want an outlet that will never be turned off. These are not on a breaker that gets turned off regularly. And you need enough outlets for the refrigeration unit and the air pump. And you can see that the air pump, let's actually come around the back or the front, I guess it doesn't matter. The air pump is split into two, and these connectors go down and provide airflow to the under gravel filter. Now, an important part here is that you have to cut out a piece of screen. The screen is the only thing that is not given to you as a part of the Trout of the classroom because it's optional. However, I think it's really necessary because as you can see, when you put the gravel in, there's just barely enough gravel to really cover the screen. If any of the gravel falls into this crevice in the side, then you can possibly have young fish, the little alevin that can't swim properly yet, get stuck underneath the under gravel filter. So in my mind, the gravel, although it's optional, is an absolute must. Okay, so I'm about to connect the chiller. You can see that I have this filled with water all the way to the top, basically because the probe, as much of this refrigeration probe needs to be in the water as possible. All right, now I'm going to have to fiddle around a little bit with the temperature here. You can see that my water out of the tap is about 60 degrees. We need to chill it down to 5 degrees, so we're going to do that overnight. I'll see what the temperature is in the morning and if we have to adjust it at all. Unfortunately, this thing doesn't have an internal thermostat. There's like this, where is it actually? It's kind of like a computer fan. Anyway, there's a little knobby in here somewhere. I think it's I think it's under there. I'll look at it tomorrow. Where you have to use like a tiny screwdriver to change the temperature of the tank. But we'll see what temperature it comes out as, and then we'll calibrate it as we go. So anyway, I'm setting this guy up about a week and a half, 2 weeks before we're expecting the rainbow trout eggs. I'm going to try and get some smooth river rocks because they like to hide in those once they've hatched. But I do like that this tank can be viewed from both sides, and so when I have kids, I'm going to have them observe the development of the fry every single day. And I can easily have them go through here, look on both sides of the tank in like 5-10 minutes. So it won't disrupt or take away too much of our class time. And it looks really cool. Let me show you what it looks like when it's fully covered up. So I'm obviously still working on it. But the rainbow trout, or the Trout in the Classroom people, were awesome. And they provided all of this material already cut up. And if I just do this carefully one-handed, you can see that they've cut it perfectly so that it fits. And luckily, I have wonderful children at my school that, although they are curious, they do tend to leave things alone if I ask them to. So this thing sits right on top, and this covers up the top there from Curious Hands. They cut little slots for the refrigeration unit. Okay, this is going to connect to the refrigeration unit here. And let's whip around to the back. And we'll see that, you know, they've even labeled it. This is side. This will keep it nice and cool and dark. And then this is the back here. So, I've had this thing set up for a week. The kids already know what we're waiting for. They're excited, obviously, for our little babies to come, our little eggs. But it's just really nice. It's a nice compact unit. And the kids know to not shut off anything so that these guys don't perish. But you can see that when it's all packed up really nice, all we need to do to observe is to just pull away a window on either side. And that's how we're going to view these little trout. So I'll try and get some footage of when we receive the eggs, again, another week and a half maybe, and we'll see how it goes. All right, so I just turned the refrigerant unit on, or the chiller rather, not a well, I guess it is a refrigerator unit, the chiller, whatever. So I just modified a couple of things. So you see that the cord is here, it connects here, and this is the regulator here. So basically I just taped it here, and I made sure that I could easily access the actual turny knobby thingy that you use to change what temperature you want it to stay at. I don't know what temperature it's going to stop chilling at. It's kind of trial and error. So the temperature has already fallen by 1 or 2 degrees since I turned it on 5 minutes ago. So I think this thing works really well. You can see, if you look under here, that I have the probe fully immersed in the water, or as far as I can. And there's this acrylic sheet that it's sitting on, and the water is going right up to the acrylic sheet. So I have as much of the probe in the water as possible, and the water was already pretty cool when I took it out of the tap. So, because our water is just cold here. And of course, I treated the water with Prime. Okay, they also recommend spring water, but you can also treat your tap with Prime. Here in San Francisco, we have chloramines, so you definitely need something that will treat chloramines, not just chlorine. So I hooked it up, made sure that it was immersed as far as possible. I taped the regulator and probe here, and you can see I have the probe down in the gravel where the alevin actually are going to be. And I should probably have this thermometer situated down further. I'm also going to bring in my infrared thermometer from home, just so I have a couple ways of checking, because temperature is super important for baby rainbow trout. They need to be 55 degrees Fahrenheit in order to thrive. And that's what, well, to grow, to thrive, to be happy. So that's what we're doing here. I have the water circulating kind of in a circular pattern around the tank. Oh yeah, the only other thing I did is I duct taped these side pieces. So I can't even pull it out, but I used a little roll of duct tape and just duct taped it to the side. The added weight of this regulator was causing it to fall off to the side, and I did the same thing over here. So I just duct taped to the side piece. You can see it's not on there super tough, or super tight rather, but it's just a little loop of duct tape to keep it on there. And then the window and back pieces for me are just staying on as is. So I've had this thing set up for a couple days now, and it just kind of sits there. And then this regulator, or this wire piece, comes right there, and boom, there you go. It's a pretty tight, pretty tightly insulated. Okay, there's a bit of a gap up here at the top, but I don't think it's bad. It's really cool. You can feel how cold this is right now, just with your hand next to it. So anyway, that is the completed setup. I'm going to be double checking the temperature. As it cools down, it said it can take up to 24 hours for it to fully chill down to whatever it's set at. There's no internal thermostat. You can't tell what it's set at. You just kind of have to do it by trial and error. And so once this green light turns off and it stops chilling, we'll see what the temperature of the tank is at, and if I need to increase or decrease it by using that tiny screwdriver into there. So anyway, that is my adventure setting up the Rainbow Trout classroom. This is day 1, and we are expecting the eggs in a week and a half, couple weeks. Very, very excited. We'll see how this goes. All right, it's the next morning. I have the blinds drawn, not because of heat, but because it's actually quite blinding to my students when they're sitting back here. Don't want them to go blind. Anyway, and it looks like this tank is actually perfectly set up already. So 40 degrees here, so 50. It's actually a tad bit cooler than 55, our target temperature. So I'm gonna raise it just a tiny bit. I don't have time right now, but I will probably during my prep period today. But this looks great. Everything looks like it's set up properly. Clearly the chiller is working really well.